Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday. Let's talk about this plague of ostriches. Or, in other words, welcome to my review of Jury Duty, Attempt 2. So last January, I was called up for jury duty for the very first time, and that experience did absolutely nothing to reassure me about the state of the system. I was surprised to be called up again this month, even though technically my term of jury service doesn't expire until March 31st. But I was surprised just because I think my first appearance made it obvious that I am very no nonsense, and I am much more concerned with whether or not the state is within constitutional bounds than I am about any alleged law breaking on the part of an individual citizen. So, not exactly friendly to the side of the prosecution, just in general. And I remain in this mindset. Criminality on the part of the state has much more far reaching and damaging consequences than anything that your average citizen criminal even has the potential to inflict. But there I was, nonetheless. And as I was more familiar with the process overall on this occasion, I ended up spending a little bit more time observing my fellow potential jurors. Now, this batch of people were definitely all normies, and I mean the most normie of all of the normies. And they had their heads planted firmly in the sand like the most determined of ostriches. And these days, I find myself becoming more alarmed and unsettled by the people who somehow have convinced themselves and they just project this energy of everything is normal and fine. Now, at least with the people who are anti-American, there's obvious malice and the lines in the sand are obvious and you can see them for who they are. They see you for who you are. But it's these people who act like that's not the state of affairs we're in. That's just creepy. Because what can you do with people who can't see that anything is amiss? Or that our society isn't just going through a rough patch, and that there's no need for serious concern or even for paying attention. Everything will be fine. Just trust it will be fine. How can anyone with that mindset possibly be qualified to sit in judgment over another human being when they don't even acknowledge what's going on around them? But again, there we were. Now, one of the worst parts of this Jury Duty 2.0 actually came from one of the other jurors, who I rejoice to say was not selected to hear the actual case. The defense attorneys were questioning us, and they asked if we all understood the concept of innocent before proven guilty, or innocent until proven guilty, I should say. And one lady raised her hand, and she said, "Well, if the defendant didn't do it, then why are we here?" I was scandalized by that remark, and I still am, because it is such a fundamental concept that we absorb in elementary school, literally. Now, the defense attorney, to his credit, was unflappable. I was not. My face was just, ugh. I was just aghast. I could not believe I was actually hearing that. But the attorney, he kept his cool, and he asked her if she had ever been accused of something she didn't do or had been judged wrongly. And then she replied that she couldn't think of a single time that had happened. Just imagine that. Now, to be fair, when I told my husband about this lady, he said that she had the most genius way to ensure that she would never get picked for the jury, and he thought it was all just kind of put on in a show. And perhaps that's what it was, just manipulation to get out of serving. That is a legitimate possibility. However, as the person who actually saw this woman and kind of got a vibe off of her, I think she meant it. I think she really didn't get the concept. So let's entertain the other possibility that she is sincere, as I suspect her to be, and that she actually believes that if someone's on trial, it means they're guilty of something. That is absolutely terrifying. Just innocent until proven guilty, trial by impartial jury, the burden of proof being on the state. These are fundamental principles, not only of the legal system, but of our entire society, and it used to be commonly understood. So if that has been forgotten by, the average citizen, then we really do need to start this country over from scratch because we have lost it. Now, another disturbing sign that I saw amongst the jurors was a manifestation of critical race theory in action. The defendant in the case happened to be black, and there were a few people, and not the majority, not even half, but there was a noticeable few who expressed that they believe the police are especially unfair to black people, and they announced to the room that they know that they have white privilege, and we heard a few dreary virtue signaling speeches, blah, blah, blah. It was the same usual drivel from, the usual brain dead zombies. And this still boggles my mind. And this proves to me that the average citizen is not actually doing their homework about anything going on. Because the statistics are very clear. The police do not employ greater force towards black suspects. In fact, they use notably less, and they're much more hesitant to, because they know if and when anything happens, their lives are over, their careers are over, they're probably going to jail. So if an officer is being a complete ass or acting wrongly, it probably has more to do with him being just on a general power trip than it does with anything that relates to racial prejudice, be that real or imagined. Now, if you want to know who the police are actually prejudiced against, then look no further than the people who are active in protesting government overreach and advocate for limits on state power and the restoration of individual rights. Never forget that the police are an arm of the state and they protect the interest of the state first. Not the people, not me, not you, definitely not the Constitution. Law enforcement considers the state before all else, and that's the problem that needs to be addressed. But it never will be, as long as people can't even diagnose the underlying issue. Now, there was one highlight that I actually enjoyed from the day, and that was that I got to hear one of the attorneys say, "Objection," which I found rather exciting, because I'm a nerd, and I've probably watched too many courtroom dramas in my time, but just to hear that in real life. And I bring this up because it was surprising to hear this during the selection process, and also because the objection came after the prosecutor asked a question of the jury that I thought was pretty manipulative, falsely framed, and very badly phrased. So I felt vindicated when the defense attorney apparently also considered that to be untoward. And then all the lawyers, they got to approach the bench and they discussed it with the judge. And I was incredibly curious about what was being said. It was certainly more interesting than anything that had taken place up to that point. Now, I couldn't hear a word of what was being said, of course, but I bet it was an interesting tug of war because they were all, kind of huddled around the bench for several minutes. And I thought, they are really having a good old chinwag over that. And it was nice to see that the defense attorneys, they were going to be clearly setting boundaries. They were going to stand up for their client, and they were wise to what the prosecution was up to. So that was reassuring. I certainly didn't see that in the last time I was called up to possibly be selected. But what was discouraging is that just like the last time, the people who were actually selected to serve were the people who never said a word through the entire proceedings. They never raised their hands. They never spoke up. They never answered questions. They never did anything. Now, for my part, I don't know about you, but for me, if I ever have the misfortune to be on trial for whatever reason, I would prefer to have some sense of who it is that I'm dealing with on the jury. And the people who just sit there, they're walking question marks. They're not, you can't really tell. Who knows what they actually think or if they were even listening during the selection process. I don't like the roll of the dice that represents. I think there needs to be more vetting, especially when you're dealing with a group of confirmed normies who are just in full-blown ostrich mode. And I don't think it's fair to the defendant. The person who isn't paying attention to what's going on, who's failing to acknowledge reality, that is not a peer, therefore they cannot be part of a jury of your peers. Particularly if anyone who does pay attention and who is aware of what's going on and is acknowledging that, yes, these things are taking place in our society. Certainly the ostriches among us have no business determining the guilt or innocence of fellow citizens. And that's because they have abdicated one of the basic duties of a citizen, to keep an eye on what's going on and being an active participant in events, not just I wash my hands of it, nothing to do with me, please leave me alone. No, I'm sorry, we're the citizens, we're the ones who are supposed to be holding the leash, and we can't hold the leash if we don't even get into the vicinity of that leash. And, just in case it's unclear, the leash is supposed to be around the neck of the government, just so we know. But I'd like to highlight the difference between citizen and subject, because the difference is a stark one, and it's important that we act accordingly and not get swept up in short-sighted, I don't want any trouble, so I'm just going to go with the flow kind of thinking. A subject is just what it sounds like. It is someone who is subject to the state. There's no limitations to the state's power. They can do what they feel like. you don't really have any rights. You might have some occasional privileges if the state feels like allowing you to do certain things. That is a subject. A citizen, by contrast, is someone who stands in judgment over the government. The citizen tells the state what the boundaries are and whether or not the people are going to be tolerating certain things from the state. And they can also say, so we let you do this and the results were really bad, and now we are taking that away from you. That's a citizen. And apparently the ostriches need to relearn this distinction among many other basic things about our society. So that was Jury Experience 2.0. This has been illuminating. It has been alarming, and I'm not feeling good about it. If I'm seeing this, if I can identify this much impropriety from a state like Missouri, then I shudder to imagine what's going on in other localities. So make of this what you will. If you'd like to discuss this a little bit further, you can come see me at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. Link to join in the description box below. If you'd like to commiserate, I would enjoy that very much indeed. Or you can leave a comment here on the channel. And please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.